YouTube channel. Today I have my June reading wrap up, which is crazy to think that it's like already July, but anyways, I had a pretty good reading month this month. A few really good ones, one maybe not so great one, but we'll get into that in a second. I'm currently sitting on my bedroom floor in an old beanbag chair so I could have my books background, so we'll see how this setup goes. If you can hear the beanbag chair at all in this video, I apologize. It's like really old and crusty, but I feel like it's more comfortable to sit on the floor this way. Anyways, so I'm just gonna get right into my big pile of books here. So I guess I will start off with the first book that I read this month. This is really in no particular order, except this one was actually the first one that I finished this month. And it was Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers, and this I would classify as a contemporary adult fiction. It was a really great story that focuses on a woman named Grace Porter who's just finished her PhD in astronomy, and she takes a celebratory trip to Vegas with her friends and ends up getting married to a complete stranger, which is obviously out of her character, I guess. And then the whole book is just kind of her trying to navigate a lot of existential crises, and also like getting to know her wife and all that jazz. So I think that this was a really cute story. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's like a feel-good, like a rom-com like kind of book. It's more of like there is romance in it, but I think that the plot focuses heavily on Grace's existential crisis and just like what to do after school, which I totally understand where she was coming from, and I feel like I related to a lot of those aspects of this book. I don't actually remember what I rated on Goodreads, probably a 4-star. Like, I think it was really good. There were just some parts of the book that I felt could get a little bit cheesy and just maybe not super realistic, but I'm pretty sure this was also the author's first book, so I mean, great job if this is your first ever novel released. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this one if you are looking for a different and a little bit thought-provoking read, I would say, and a little fun romance. Okay, and the next one is like an actual romance book, which I loved. I think I ended up giving 5 stars. Just because it was so fun, and that was Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert, and this is the second book of the Brown sisters trilogy, I guess I would call it, and this was just such a fun read, and I really enjoyed the characters, and Talia Hibbert is just an amazing like romance writer. Like, she doesn't make it overly cheesy, like it's at least semi-realistic, I would say. I mean, some of the stuff is a little bit, you know, cheesy, but I think that this one was just so fun, and I think I liked the characters more in this one than in Chloe Brown. Like, I still liked Chloe Brown, but that was more, I think I ended up giving it like a 4 stars, but this one was my first 5-star read of the month, and yeah, definitely I would recommend this to anyone who wants to read some saucy romance books this summer. Alright, the next one that I have in my pile was my definitely lowest rated book this month, and it's Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. And this novel is like really short. Like, I honestly wouldn't even call it a novel, like I'd call it a novella, because I think it's only like 107 pages. And when I started out reading this book, I thought, oh, okay, this isn't too bad. Like, I'm not usually super into classics, but I've been trying to read more to, you know, branch out. But I thought, like, okay, like, this is maybe like a 3-star worthy. And then just as I kept reading it, I just started to really dislike it. And I don't know, it's just like, this book didn't really have any plot. And normally, like, I don't really care about plot, like, I'm more about character development. But there was also no character development in this, so it was kind of just like a non-story. Like, I don't know how to describe it. And like, maybe it was just too short for anything like real to happen. But there was also just like some other things that really rubbed me the wrong way about this book. And like, I would warn people reading this that there is definitely racism in this book. And like, there were a few lines that were particularly I don't want to, like, just really uncalled for. And I think there's always that argument of like, oh yeah, like, because it's a classic, like, racism's like, that was just the times. But I feel like in this book that it just took it like way too far. And I mean, not that racism is ever okay, but I just, yeah, and that really rubbed me the wrong way. And just like, also the only female character in this book turned out to be a racist asshole. Like, it, and just was like, there's so many other like problematic things like about her character. And then like, I don't want to spoil or anything, but like, what happens in the end, it's like the only female character like that happens to. I don't know, it just, for me, this didn't age well, and I was a little bit disappointed because I feel like John Steinbeck is like one of the most famous American authors, so I was intrigued to try like one of his stories, and I feel like this is probably one of the more popular ones, I would think. But yeah, I was really disappointed in this one, and I have to admit, I probably only checked out this author because the Wonder Hill writers were like obsessed with John Steinbeck, so I was curious. But yeah, this is a definite pass for me. I think I ended up rating it 1 star. Like, that might have been a little harsh, like maybe it's more 2 stars, but I don't know. I was just, by the end, I was like so fed up with this book, and it's like not even that long. Alrighty, well, the next book that I read was a bit better, I'll say. I actually can't remember what I rated this, maybe a 3 star, maybe 3.5. But it's Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, and I had only read like excerpts of Virginia Woolf's work before, like I'd never read a full novel from hers, so I was really intrigued, and this cover is just like so beautiful. But yeah, I really liked this story. I thought it was a good, if you don't really read a whole lot of classics, I feel like this is maybe a good place to start, because it's not, like, I think there's the writing in here sometimes is just beautiful, and it's not like crazily complex. Like, sometimes it does get a little bit convoluted in some areas, and it also does technically take place like over a single day, so like in that aspect, like, it can feel kind of drawn out, but they do like a lot of like flashbacks and, you know, but yeah, so I think this one was definitely worth my time, I think. Like, it wasn't like the best book I've ever read, but I think there were some really poignant moments in this, and yeah, I'm glad that I checked it out. The next book that I read was actually a collection of poems, and it's called Burning in This Midnight Dream by Louise Bernice Halfe, and it's a collection of poetry that kind of illuminates the impacts of residential schools, and just like, wow, I feel like there's not much for me as a non-Indigenous person to say about this book except like just go read it, because Like literally I had tears in my eyes pretty much like reading this and like throughout the whole collection. Like, I mean, aside from the fact that she's just like a crazy talented writer, and like I'm not usually one for poetry, but these poems were just so masterfully crafted, and like the content was really hard to read, but I think really important to read, especially, well, for everyone, but I think especially for non-Indigenous people with what's going on right now. Like, I think it's so important to support Indigenous voices and, you know, read Indigenous authors. This is just an amazing collection of poems, and it flows so beautifully, and I think it's just really important for everyone to read, if not this book, then others like it. But yeah, if you like poetry, I think you should definitely check this out. And even if you don't like poetry, I think it's still accessible enough to read, because I'm not usually a huge poetry fan, but I really, I think, got a lot out of this book. It was definitely worth my time. I think I gave this either a 4 or 5 stars on Goodreads. It was excellent. Alright, the next book, and the last technically full book that I finished this month, was another 5-star read, and it is The House in the Cerulean Sea, and I'm so happy that I finally got around to reading this. I feel like everybody on YouTube has just been raving about this book, saying that it's so wholesome and fun, and I wholeheartedly agree. I feel like this was one of the most unique books that I've read in a really long time, in the fact that, like, you could tell that it was an adult book, but it just had such a youthful spirit to it, and the characters were just so well done, and it could be almost emotional at times, but still really fun and like funny. Like, there were some parts in this where I like actually kind of like laughed out loud a little bit, which I don't often do like in books, but this, I feel like you can't, like, it's better to go into this without knowing what it's about, I would think. Just like, don't even read the back, just like dive head first, because it's just such an enjoyable story. And especially when, or at least a lot of the literature that I've been reading lately has been like relatively heavy. Like, it's just so refreshing to come across a book that's like happy and makes you feel good, and yeah, just like fun and whimsical. And I really can't say enough good things about this book. It was definitely a 5-star, and it might be going in to my all-time favorite books. Who knows? But it's definitely a memorable one. And I think my favorite character is Lucy in this. If you've read it, you'll know, and you should if you haven't read it, you should definitely read it, because this was just such a delight to read. And I think I read it in like one day, because I just like, I could not put it down. And then the last book that I'm going to talk about, which I'm actually only partway through, but I figured I'd give it a shout out in this video, and that's Dubliners by James Joyce, just because I've read most of it in June, so might as well put it in this one. And I was actually surprised at this book. I'm really enjoying it so far. I didn't realize that it was actually a collection of short stories instead of a novel, and like, from what you get from the title, like, is kind of what it is. Like, it's really just like an overarching look at Dublin, like pre the First World War, I believe. Yeah, because I think it was finished in 1905, but it wasn't published until later, I don't think. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, it's just really interesting, and so far the writing has been really good, and I like the way that the characters like are developed, and also to me, like, I feel like the way that he has ended all of the stories so far has been like really unique and like cool. I don't know, like they just, and like I like that also the stories are a good length. Like they're not crazy long, but they're not like super short either. I think this is just, I haven't actually read a whole lot of classics that are short story collections. Like I feel like normally when I read classics it's been novels, but so it's kind of cool to see like this format like back then. And I kind of think that James Joyce was a little bit of a pioneer of this format. Again, I could be wrong, just from what I remember from the foreword of the book. But yeah, so far this has been good, and if you are into classics and just want to know more about what Dublin was like in the early 1900s, I think that you would enjoy this. Who knows, maybe I'll update you on my thoughts when I actually finish it, but so far, so good. Anyways, that is my June reading wrap up. I hope you enjoyed hearing about the books that I read this month. I definitely enjoyed talking about them and promoting them. Yes, and I have a ton of amazing books on my TBR, so stay tuned for my future reading wrap-ups. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see y'all soon. Okay, bye!